I spent a ton of money on developers and programmers, and I know there's a lot of good ones out there, but anyone who's been in this niche hard long enough will know that you waste a lot of money on people who don't meet deadlines, don't meet deliverables. So when we found BuddyBoss, it was really appealing because it brought these two factors together like this. We went through a mobile developer, got burned there more than anything else I've ever done in business, like mobile development. And it was just so straightforward and gave us a nice foundation to build upon.
Hello and welcome to the BuddyBoss podcast, where we dive deep into the strategies that will help you build, launch, and grow your online communities, courses, and memberships. I'm your host, Jason Broderick, Marketing Manager and Head of Content here at BuddyBoss. If it's your first time here to the channel or you just haven't gotten around to it yet, click that subscribe button below this video and then click that bell icon to make sure you keep up to date with all of our latest content here at BuddyBoss. In today's episode, I'm joined by Anthony DeMauro from Gamactica. Gamactica is the social media and marketing platform for the content creation and gaming metaverse. Anthony tells us about how there is a glass ceiling on all social media platforms that is attractive for initial growth, but eventually prevents you from truly owning your content and your business. How after wasting thousands of dollars, discovering BuddyBoss allowed him to finally not be beholden to developers and to build a platform and the app that he really wanted. And how trying to build a brand online without some understanding of SEO is like trying to run a marathon with a weighted vest on. Let's dive in. Anthony, welcome to the show, mate. So I've got one question for you firstly before I dive in, which is it's going to be on everybody's lips and everybody's going to be thinking it. Firstly, I want to know, how can I get myself a blue tick on Twitter? That's the big thing I want to know. I want you to give me the lowdown before we get into anything else.
Oh, just a lot of patience and wading through social media toxicity, I guess would be the real thing, and biting your tongue. I have I'm on my third tongue by now, so biting that through is a good thing. And just being specific to your brand. We got a little stroke of luck, so our brand got verified earlier this year. I've been verified for 3 years, but yeah, I wish there was. They actually make it a lot easier now. You can apply for it. I kind of just woke up one morning and there's a tick, and I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. So
yeah, what you're supposed to say is that there's some magical system and there's a process, and that if they for $99, you can take my course on getting a blue tick on Instagram
right here.
Twitter.
You're selling it.
No, I'm just joking, just kidding, mate. So tell me a little bit about Gamactica. Tell me, what it is, who it's for, and what does it do for them.
Well, I'll just give you a broad background. Back in 2018, my wife had gotten into content creation, more specifically streaming on Twitch. And my background's in search engine optimization, been in it since 2007. So naturally, when I looked at this stuff, I looked from the SEO mindset, and I'm like, oh, well, how's everyone scaling or branding or marketing? And it's just nothing going on. So I'm like, okay, so I dabbled in just the experiment of creating a little community for Twitch and streamers mainly. And then from there, I just got really creative with it and started rolling out the directories. And now we are so immersed, it's gone beyond the gaming side of things. We're in film, sports, music content creators, horror, which I don't know if you can tell I'm a horror fan, just a little bit, but we really saw a need in this market for scaling. And it's not just the creators, it's the brands and the businesses operating in these verticals. They really don't have, and that goes to Web3 too, they do not have a real platform to network that is professionally based, and they don't have real tools and resources to help them understand what they need. It's like that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. So we really leaned into that over the past year and a half. So that's kind of where it started and where it is.
Cool. All right. So what do you think then for a content creator who's just starting to sort of go live on, let's say, Facebook Live or Instagram Live or TikTok or Twitch or anything like that, and they're starting to see a little bit of traction, a little bit of success, and they're thinking, okay, how do I start taking a bit more ownership over this? How do I start maybe monetizing or maybe just sort of owning their content a little bit more and not becoming so reliant on a particular platform? What would you say are some of the initial challenges or initial struggles that a content creator like that would face initially, and how might they overcome that?
Well, that's a great question. I think a lot of problems we've seen is just the lack of professionalism. I think that's key. Business sense, business mindedness, just really be focused on your verticals, on branding. I feel like a lot of creators in this specific space and vertical, it's really easy to obsess over the numbers in a negative way. It's good. Obviously we have a podcast here, Jason. It's like if you get 100 viewers on it or views on it, you're like, all right, you get 1,000, it's a different vibe and you want to chase that, right? So our end game is just like obsessing it on the right way, right? You want to have real traffic. And I think a lot of creators fall in the pitfall of like not realizing everything. Things are a marathon. They're not a sprint. It takes a lot. I mean, listen, I launched Gamactica in 2018. Here we are in 2022, and we're still like at the crust of what we're doing. So it's that approach and just understanding that there was a lot of enticing things out there to help you game the system, take shortcuts, cheat, fast support. A lot of these in these creator things, it's communities. It's a lot of communities are like support for support, follow for follow. And this exists in a lot of business variables. It's not exclusive just to streaming, but I think about that big Twitch number. They say we have over 11 million channels, right? So 27,000 are partnered. If you look at that in a percentage, my math may be off. It's around 1%. A lesser fraction of that is actually making a sustainable income off of being partnered. Meaning, I think the split is like 70-30. I could be wrong on that, but I think it hovers around that. That's significant if you make $50, 70-30 split. You're like, yeah, whatever. You're making 5,000. That's a big chunk they're taking out of you. And I get it. A lot of people want to gripe at the platform and be like, oh, well, it's too much. The platform's got to pay for your server costs, which, you understand and can respect, processing the video. And it's not just for that creator getting the 5,000 views. It's for the creator getting 1 view, 2 views. They got to do that as well. So I think the problem is just having this collective approach on the right way to do marketing, the right way to professionally run a business, and understanding as soon as you hit live on a button, you're a business person, you're an entity, you're representing your brand, and you have to reflect that and conduct yourself as such on social media. I see a lot of toxicity in these spaces, and I wonder to myself, it's just you're operating as a business, you're expecting to monetize. And your monetization, I think, just spiraling off of that, you shouldn't be reliant solely on the split of a platform. I think that's a big pitfall that a lot of people run into is they're like, all right, cool, I made 5,000 off the platform and my 30% or my 70% of that. No, that should be one funnel, one revenue pathway. You should be working on branding. You should be working on your website. You should be working on becoming more attractive to advertisers. Anyone that's owned a website for any period of time has gotten that classic email. Hey, I really like your website. Here's an article of content with a link, how much to post it. That's a monetization opportunity, as spammy as it is. But that just shows you that there are other avenues to go into that really can be monetization pathways, and understanding that is what's really holding the creator back.
For sure. Yeah. Katie, as I mentioned, she sort of getting into the content creation space outside of her job, and we've seen, because of the sort of the connections that she has to the other to the girls in her industry, she started getting partner requests. She started getting influencer marketing stuff come through. She started getting like brands offering her free stuff, and like she's not she herself isn't necessarily a big influencer. She's only got about less than 10,000 followers on Instagram or whatever. But we've already seen products through the letterbox. We've seen brand partnership deals come out. We've seen management companies reach out to her to say, hey, listen, we think you might have something going on there. Because she's spent some time sort of making her brand squeaky clean, it makes her a more attractive proposition for a company like that to come and say, hey, listen, will you post about our cleaning product or whatever? You know what I mean? Could be anything. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is for a lot of folk who work in the real, let's say the IRL world, like the offline world, where their sort of their main business exists in the real world, the pandemic sort of turned the industry upside down or turned it on its head. But
Yeah.
for you and for like your industry of people who were already existing in a virtual space, they were already, embracing the online world, embracing the sort of going live regularly kind of thing. Tell me a little bit about how the pandemic sort of affected all that. Did things go up, down? What was the sort of effect of I imagine, an influx of new content creators deciding that they were content creators?
You just hit the nail on the head right there. Everyone during the pandemic kind of like just hit play. And I think like the industry statistics show that, while a lot of businesses took a dip, understandably, gaming thrived and Twitch thrived and YouTube thrived. And then we had these other platforms popping up. Facebook gaming became more prevalent in this space. Trovo started introducing their platform to the space. And then in turn, from my personal business side of things, the SEO space really morphed because a lot of businesses were forced to go online, then maybe lean into it or create it in a way that they never had before, or prioritize it, because we didn't know how long it was going to last, how long everyone was going to be online operational. So, and it's still to that day now. I feel like we are seeing so many booms in these respective spaces. With content creation, though, it's just, there's a good and a bad to it. With the good is you had this influx of new content coming in. You had these platforms coming about. You had more content. It's proving to be a revenue generating industry. But with good comes bad. You started having a lot of warts rise to it. I think there was a huge harassment and toxicity issue on Twitch that rolled out during the pandemic phase that kind of took front and center. And it really put a spotlight on how the creator culture is flawed in this aspect in terms of the hate speech and all this stuff. And that calls back to what I was talking about as being problematic at the forefront, is the professionalism, as the risk to potential mainstream advertisers and stuff like that. And that just circled back. And I think it became more prevalent, and they're still struggling with it today.
Could you tell me a little bit about, you decided, your wife started streaming, you wanted to sort of do something around this space, and so you kind of came up with this notion of Gamactica. Tell me about some of the initial challenges that you faced when you wanted to start building your platform from scratch. Tell me some of the sort of challenges you faced at first.
The great question, and it leads right in, like finding a good platform. I'm very WordPress, devotee of WordPress, and it's just something I understand. I'm not a programmer by nature. I'm not a web designer by trade, but I picked up a lot of knowledge about WordPress just from being around it for over a decade. So I wanted to be somewhere else comfortable, and I didn't want to be beholden to a developer, programmer, or designer. I wanted to find a platform that could. I think at first we started off as a little website and just listed a couple things. And then I toyed with the idea of doing social media aspect of it. I've done it years ago with a similar company. I did sports rants. And I think in that specific space, we had a nice little peak and valley on that. And then I just kind of like that off. So I looked at it and I'm like, I understand what was on the server end, the cost. So mainly when I started it was just lowering overhead on operating it and then optimizing growth. So the challenges I faced there was just finding the right, we were just website based, and in this day and age, you're website based, especially if you're trying to do a social media community. Getting anybody over there as a member is a challenge and a half, because if you get them over as a member, it's almost assuredly that they're a one-time hit because they're not going to come back. So a lot of it was just creating something to entice people to stay and go around the website. And that was a huge challenge. And not being mobile accessible was a big hiccup, because then I started working at like mobile development, and the costs are just absurd. So you got to start scaling your business in a way to like justify entertaining a cost or an expenditure like that, and then really mapping out what that looks like, and then considering all the costs that are associated with that. So I think a lot of us was member outreach. Like, we leveraged social media. You spoke at the beginning of the show. Oddly enough, as we're verified on Twitter, Twitter did nothing for me in this realm at the start. I think 2018, 2019, the algorithm on Instagram is way better. So Instagram was a huge conversion component for us. That changed dramatically because now it's back to Twitter. And that's basically how we leveraged things. It was challenging to convince people that, hey, this is what we're doing. It's viable. It has a value, because everybody wants to know, if I'm going to do this new social media thing, what's the ROI on my time expenditure, my time investment? And that's, I can respect that to a certain level. Content creators can be a little bit more rigid in how that's communicated, and their expectation level. And again, when I touched on these issues earlier, a lot of people are like, they're so centric on the fast growth and the instant impact, explaining what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do things and the whys and the hows. It's a challenge. So we had to really, and people are asked, well, 4 years, what took you 4 years? Building the data and the test, building the analytics to support what we're doing, all test modules across all these platforms. And then once we expanded to like film, television, sports, all that stuff, proving that those metrics and those verticals have viability in the same spaces, utilizing our product and our platform. So it was a lot of those challenges and just finding the right, flow, so to speak, in that. And it was just a lot of money spent, because not every idea I thought would be awesome really was awesome. And there may be a great plugin in WordPress and I'm like, oh my God, I would so use this. And then it's dead on the water, even though I dropped a couple hundred on the license. Now I'm sitting there like, man, no one's using this. So those are some of the challenges.
So tell me a little bit about, the sort of the viewers and the listeners. Tell us a little bit more about what types of content actually are on Gamactica. So from my sort of look from the outside in, shall we say, there's a lot of, it seems to me that there's a lot of sort of news related content or topical trending type content, which seems to me to be the sort of generator of traffic. But tell me a little bit more about, like, is there a membership? What exists behind that membership? Are there any, what's the monetization model? Tell me a little bit about how you're sustaining that too on the kind of back end.
Great question. There's a lot going on in Gamactica. It's a good thing and a bad thing, because it leads to long conversations explaining about what Gamactica is doing and trying to funnel that in. The good thing is we operate in so many different areas. We have sections. So, you talked about film and theater. So if your particular interest point is that and content creation there, you can come on and join our social media side and network with others, find other creators in your space. We also have these sections, and I would almost kind of like classify them as like a mini Yelp, so to speak, where we have our own algorithm set up. So you can go to the film section. In this instance, it's called Eclipse. You can go to our Eclipse section, and you can find film content creators, actors, and actresses who are on the platform. See a bio. So I would think it's like kind of like a innovative media kit right on their page. If they have a content channel, like I think in an actor's case, you have a reel, and it's on YouTube. It's embedded right there. You have all their social medias, and you can have a rating review system. For example, if you're on the gaming side, let's just say, hey, I want to watch someone play games. You can go to our stream directory. You can find a creator based on the platform they're streaming on, the type of content, the game they're playing, the location and language that they're in, because we have members from over 30 countries from around the world, and content rating. Now, granted, that's arbitrary, but it's a good indicator. Like, let's just say you're watching it. I got a 14-year-old. He can't watch anything that a lot of these content creators are doing. So I want to make sure there's anything. You have that kind of search metric. So we have an algorithm there to help kind of like, I'm really aging myself here, but if you think about a TV guide, it's like we got a virtual TV guide. I don't know
what that is, unfortunately. I'm not old enough to know what a TV guide is now. I'm joking.
No. But that's what's really important, because people who, they cry about, I don't want to say cry because it seems like they got a complaint about discoverability and visibility, right? But it's not on the platform all the time. And this is where we're coming in with this discoverability aspect that really has meat on the bone. Discoverability isn't just like finding, these search mechanisms to really like, it's not so, I think a lot of people, and especially in the Twitch space and YouTube space, they equate discoverability to my videos on the front page of Twitch, And it's just kind of like, if you and I are watching, we have different interests and we're there for different reasons. So that's not automatically going to convert to, us watching that video. I think our algorithm is so intuitive and it continues to evolve that where our idea is, if you're listed in our directory, you're a member of our platform, which listings are free, the targeted traffic that comes in is more apt to check out your content. And if they view it, they're more apt to convert to a viewer. And that is the metric that we're seeing, is just bringing targeted views in. Memberships are free. We're always going to be free. We have a premier membership. And as I said earlier, We want to. This is a palpable thing. It starts at $9.99, $9.99 a month, and basically what you get is just if you're listed on Gamactica, it's a little bit more of an SEO boost. Now, is it on an enterprise level where these companies are spending $1 to $10K a month? No, but it's going to give you more of a SEO value where, we talked about when you have a website and someone comes and wants to advertise, they want to do that because you have some SEO value to your web brand or your portfolio, your whatever you're doing. So that's where that value aspect comes in. Big picture, we eventually want to roll out a live content streaming and content creation aspect of the platform.
Earlier on, you mentioned that you have a sort of an expertise in SEO. That SEO is like something that you're really got a lot of expertise in. You spent many years working in SEO. Could you just tell everybody a little bit before I ask you a few questions? Give us a little bit of a rundown of like your SEO experience. How you learned it, all that kind of stuff. And I know you do SEO work for clients as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I stumbled haphazardly into SEO back in 2006. I was employee number 5 at what ended up growing into the biggest internet marketing firm and that search engine optimization firm in that 3-4 year stretch I was there. And without patting myself on the back too hard and hurting myself, I had a huge role in building that up. I managed over 100 clients at a time, which was almost double more than what any other person in a similar role was doing. I was handling some of their most high-end clients. I worked with clients such as Overstock.com, Grasshopper, Dish Network throughout my time. I left in 2009. It was more a philosophical difference. I just wanted to get more of a customer element into things and be more creative. And, when you work for internet marketing agency, it's a great thing because it allows you these awesome opportunities to work on such a wide range of industries and niches. But on the flip side, I had a deep passion for creative elements. I didn't just want to be SEO. I wanted to create things. I wanted to build things. I wanted to go in different verticals. I wanted to test ideas, experiment. And I wasn't allowed to do that there. So I launched my own in 2009, which is Elite Rank Media. And then when I launched Elite Rank Media and my work in SEO, I started up this brand called Sports Rants. So Sports Rants I used SEO, built up to this prominent nature where I got headhunted by Forbes and Huffington Post to come cover sports for them. I did that for a couple cups of coffee, as they would say, even though I don't drink coffee. But I did that. I started really finding a niche in the medical SEO realm. That's not to suggest we don't serve clients in other industries and niches, but for whatever rhyme and reason, medical just gravitated to us. So I did a lot of work in that space. And then when Gamactica came along, like I said, I noticed all these issues. And then I think at the beginning of the year, we formally, and this is after a year and a half of just data and analytics and just tests, we finally rolled out services from the Gamactica under the Elite Rank umbrella that service the gaming, esports, Web3, which is NFT crypto, search engine optimization spaces, and content creator spaces, and really diving into influencer marketing. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And I like to really pride myself. I've gone up and I've been hired by clients and who are in very competitive niches, and I go up by myself. I've gone up all against teams of 10, 50, 75 SEO experts, and we've either been very, very competitive in those spaces, and I've beaten them. And it's all about going beyond the keyword focus. Yes, keywords are very important, Google, Yahoo, and Bing, but it's all about branding, how you're optimizing social media, where you're spending your dollars, if you're protecting your reputation online.
For the listener or the watcher who 50% of what you just said was gobbledygook and who doesn't understand most of the acronyms, could you just dive a little deeper into if I am a community leader or if I am an individual course creator, let's say, why is SEO important to me? Why should I care about it? What is it in broad terms, and how can I benefit as a community leader from paying some attention to SEO?
Great question. I think the very first thing, the best answer I can give you, and first is one of the initial things people do when they start a brand and they come up with a product, of course, is you're looking at something. You're either looking at an industry or you're looking at a website or someone else doing it that you're like, ooh, I can do that better, or I want to compete with that. So right off the rip, you understand that if there's no competition in your market, then you're not in a viable market. Let's just face it. There's no kind of like connectivity in there. You want to compete. Where are you going to scale? How? And honestly, if that doesn't sell people on SEO, I think the majority of the time, if you are going to work with a company, or you need to go to a restaurant, you're going to go to a store, or you're buying a product, what is the most common thing people do is they look for a review and they Google it. So right there off the rip, there's SEO value, because and this is a strategy some brands use, they'll try to SEO for their competitor's product to make sure they're right there in the eye line for people to see, yeah, there's the product and there's something else right here. Let me click on that, and they have a sale going on. So I think for people that don't understand SEO, but or why it's important, it's really just like the marketing fuel behind a website, and really just driving it. I use this in content creation a lot. It's the 300 to 30 rule, I like to call it. So if you're running a channel, right, and you have 300 people in there, that's great, right? But wouldn't you rather have 30 people in there who are actually there for the specific reason, actually they're ready to become clients and businesses, not 300 people that just meandering to your stream and just checking it out and leaving. You want the 30 there, right? Because the retention percentage is much higher with the 30, and the conversion percentage is much higher with the 30 than it is the 300. So I would look at it like that. Not to suggest 300 people watching your channel or your product is a bad thing, but targeted outweighs everything, because that's where we're all in business to make money. I mean, anybody not in it to make money or to even for operational costs, you don't want to be in the red all the time. It's not good business. So you want to make sure that your website is going to be palpable and be able to be discoverable. Otherwise, you're gonna still be able to run the race and run the marathon, but you're gonna have leg weights on, a weighted vest, and what's that going to do to your time? So that's probably the most rudimentary way I can answer an SEO question. It's just, if you're operating a website on some level, you've done a Google search on some level, the value's right there. It's anyone who hasn't, then SEO is probably not for you. If you've never used Google, never clicked on anything, probably can't tell you much about it. But yeah, that's the value.
So
point.
For me, as somebody who I like to say that I know enough coding to make me dangerous, but not enough to call myself a developer. I probably sit in a similar region with like SEO, what it is, and like the tools and how to do it and whatever. I probably know just enough to make me dangerous. Yeah. So for me, there's kind of like you kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but to really simplify it to me, there's sort of the very first step is when somebody searches for you, do they find you, and what do they see? So that's like if I searched for Jason Broderick in Google, what do I see? Firstly, do I see me? And secondly, what is it that I see? Yeah. Right? That's like step one for me. Then the next one is, okay, if I search for something similar to Jason Broderick, do I show up next to the main thing, which is more sort of, that's the more advanced level of stuff, I think. Searching for Jason Broderick in Google versus searching for marketing manager. If I search for Jason Broderick, do I show up? Well, okay, that's level one. Level two is, how can I make it so that when I search for marketing manager that I show up? What are your thoughts on if somebody is running a private community? Like, let's say the content's not necessarily publicly available, or you have to be registered to join, or there is there's some sensitive criteria around joining. Let's say it's a community for a specific gender or gender identity or something like that. Do you see the private communities and networks that are private also have a benefit to SEO, or and if so, what would you say is the benefit of that?
Yes, 100%, and I can directly relate to this with Gamactica being an example, because our activities and posts and all that stuff, they're private, but we have public aspects of our, I alluded to our directories, those are public. You don't have to be logged in to search. You don't got to be logged in to view this stuff. So there's two aspects to that, and they're both equally valuable. The private stuff, and I would almost use Reddit as an example. Reddit is great at this because they index, Google indexes a ton of their pages, and you can read their forums for free, but the first thing you pops up is log in. So I don't think there's any anchor behind that. Now, user experience is a different question. The SEO aspect, no. Think about it like this. I mean, you can do a search for your name, right? And your Facebook profile may come up in that search, but can people look at your Facebook profile and your post? No, they have to be on Facebook. So there's an SEO value there that I think is worth, and especially from a branding aspect. But on the same side of that, in the same token, I do think that really organizing how your platform is disseminating content is huge, and organizing it in a very particular way. This is where on-site SEO comes in huge. You got to let search engines know, and you got to let Google know more prominently how your website's structured. And right now we got a ton of plugins, and I don't mean to poo-poo any of them, but they're very resource heavy and they're very intensive, and they don't do a lot of what should be done on on-site SEO. And I think that really creates a quandary for a lot of folks running on WordPress or anything else, is just these really heavy plugins that may be slowing down processes otherwhere. They're almost of this thinking that it's just like, even though this plugin's boasting that, your private content, your public content, we can help index everything. It's so heavy. You're almost in this like quandary of like, oh my God, do I compromise performance because this is eating up so much server resource, or because I'm under this impression that I'm so reliant on this that, I need it. I got to make that compromise. I don't think we have websites that run off these SEO plugins and some of them that don't. And I can tell you, I don't really see a huge difference in SEO performance in either or. So private websites, public websites, I still feel it's extremely good value, because Google, when told exactly what your website is and understanding it, and that's from, and I'll add in something right after this, that is just really a big core component in understanding and how to index your website.
If I am a niche content creator right now, I have my BuddyBoss site that I'm setting up, and I'm starting to think, like you said, about creating valuable resources that might provide an answer to questions that are specific to people searching in my niche, let's say. How do you go about identifying the right keywords to create content around? Like if let's say if I did like a competitor analysis and I looked at all the search traffic for all of my big competitors, and I end up with a list of 5,000 keywords that are all in the top 5 results for on all these competitors. How do I go about, like, I can't write 5,000 articles quickly. How do I decide which keywords should I start with, and how do I begin going about writing a piece of content to satisfy that keyword?
Yeah, that is a great question. We get that all the time. Where do we start? Obviously, you want the biggest, most traction-bearing keywords, but there's also value in low-lying fruit to get you tracked into that industry, because that's how organic works. Is if you get tracked in industry, you organically rank for other terms, and a lot if your SEO is solid. In the creator space, I would almost say we have kind of like been in so many different areas and grown that we look at the keywords that we rank for, the organic keywords that's a great indicator. Actually, I'll say organic keyword research and just understanding how people are organically, how Google, how search engines are defining your website is a great indicator for how, search sees you. The audience, ask your audience. I can't tell you how many, I know a lot of BuddyBoss platforms, they can boast a lot larger member numbers than us, and their tactic on onboarding members is just stellar. We really went probably the hardest work aspect of it, the longer strategy, because I use social media outreach to get this. And part of that process of bringing on members is we create this rapport with them. They have communication. We're front and center. They can, they DM me on Twitter. They'll go on Gamactica and message me. A lot of our forums and a lot of these conversations, we've asked them, how have you found Gamactica? How have you discovered this? And if we get that answer that is like through search, we ask the keyword, what did they search? And I'll tell you, there's a lot of times where they search a term and I'm just like, I wasn't even in that spectrum, and I'll take that. So audience sourcing is one thing. Organizing your keywords. And if I were screen sharing right now, I'll try to paint this picture as best as I can with my hands. If you do a Google search on desktop, right, in Chrome, right under the search bar when you get results, there's this great little number that'll say like about 1.900 million results. That is an indication of how many websites are competing for that term. So naturally, the higher that number is, the more competitive it is, and the lower it isn't. Another indicator, do you see ads on the search result page before you scroll down to the results? That's an under indicator. If people are paying for those ad spots, that's a competitive term. Third factor, sometimes Google will have this little FAQ section where you can drop down little questions and answers. If they have questions and answers, a Q&A within the answer of a search query, that's an under indicator. So you can do a lot of this research on your own and kind of organize. I would organize it in almost 3 tiers. The dream keywords, the middle tier, which is like, yes, it's going to take a lot of work and eventually we want to get here. This would be great. And then like the obtainable goals and maybe a 4th level for low-lying fruit. And if you tier things out there, then I think your success strategy and your roadmap for success can be a lot more obtainable, a lot more understood. You can celebrate more successes. You can pivot a lot more based on the market, because let's also factor in Google rolls in a ton of updates, core updates to their algorithm per year. There's usually like several that are like out there that people have diagnosed and they name it and they pretty much track here. But there's all these little subtle ones that just come across that shift the landscape. That's one of the things I feel like that is, from the business aspect, I'm really proud of where we evolved as a company, is just being able to see something immediately, have a quick conversation, realize it's not working, and pivot to something else that may be working. So having that fluidity, that flexibility, use everything at your disposal. Use the free things. Not everything is going to come with this exorbitant cost. You have an audience right there to source. You have Google to source. Start being creative, and I think that would really help. And those are some tips off the offset that I would suggest to anyone using the BuddyBoss platform to build the community.
Since discovering BuddyBoss or since building Gamactica, what's been the biggest highlight to you or the biggest benefit to you personally of creating Gamactica?
I just want to speak about BuddyBoss first. One of the challenges I came in to this with before I found BuddyBoss is I spent a ton of money on developers and programmers, and I know there's a lot of good ones out there, but anyone who's been in this niche long enough will know that you waste a lot of money on people who don't meet deadlines, don't meet deliverables, don't give you what you want, and then you're kind of married to you're kind of at their beck and call a little bit. And we got burned so many times, and then we ended up starting using I would say structures where the theme wasn't married to the social structure plugin, and it creates, when they don't work together and they're not, cohesive, it creates a lot of issues either with the theme or with this, and then it just spiders into a lot of issues. So when we found BuddyBoss, it was really appealing because it brought these two factors together like this. We had the mobile aspect, which is very appealing, kind of where we struggled too, because it's just like we went through a mobile developer, got burned there more than anything else I've ever done in business, like mobile development. And it was just so straightforward and gave us a nice foundation to build upon. We had such grandiose plans, and I think we realized when we started using BuddyBoss that was more of a big picture rather than doing the right now. Mm-hmm. But also, as we're scaling with BuddyBoss with Gamactica, I'm excited about moving into the future. Right now we're at the stage where we're going to be, we've been talking to investors and stuff like that. And we're exploring the big picture. And as I alluded to, we want to innovate everything about this industry and just do it differently. And we want to do content creation differently. We want to do live streaming differently. We want to do all this stuff we want to do differently. For me personally, it's a passion to do this stuff because I thoroughly enjoy all the geeky nuances and all the stuff that goes along with content creation and gaming. I think there's a lot of talent out there that is just either through the brand side, business side, corporate side, or even the creator side, the solopreneur, the entrepreneur. There's so much talent out there, and we're living a day and an age where the opportunity is at its most optimized to do something and empower yourself. I do this with all my clients. I don't want anybody to be beholden to our services. So when we set up a website, they might want custom development. I always push into WordPress. And if they want a community, I push into BuddyBoss, because you don't necessarily have to have all this technical knowledge to use it and operate it. So then you're not paying, developer A to maintain it. You can pick that money and put it into something else to scale and growth. And that's what I really like about it. And our future is so bright. And, I hope, we continue to do podcasts like this. We check in, and there's going to be a day where we have a conversation where we have the live streaming and the stuff and the version out. And I really can give you, say, Jason, we did this innovation, we changed everything. And now the economy, the creator economy, and that business economy around it is really better for it. And, it's all about opportunity and play. And there's a lot of people out there who just don't know what they don't know. And I always go back to that. And that's one of the things with Gamactica's journey that has just been really enriching, is just everything I've learned around this, and has bettered me as a business person, and has bettered me in SEO, surprisingly, because influencer marketing is just this new realm. And I'm so excited to tackle it and put SEO into it. But also is running this social business with all that is really just colliding all these niches and industries and streamlining it, but also personalities and interests and geographical locations, languages and cultures, and just seeing them mesh together and really trying to push diversity, equality, inclusivity, and making that important and do it in a soluble way. It's just been an incredible journey.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear. I love that. So tell me then, if that's sort of some of the benefits to you personally, tell me then what's been some of the highlights, or what's been the biggest benefit to your users of choosing BuddyBoss as the platform to deliver that through?
My users, it's just more fluid. I just remember not operating on it and using, like I said, solo theme, solo plugin for this, and it was just like a lot of user confusion. I think what BuddyBoss really steers in is it looks like a social media platform that they've used. So the how do I use this is more natural, more organic. I think a lot of things that are what BuddyBoss is doing, especially in the future, to lean more in the social spaces, whatever you guys have on the docket. I think it's growing and it's becoming more feature rich, and there's a really good emphasis on performance, which is huge, because you only have X amount of time window to really sell somebody on getting there and then retaining that business and retaining that client and that user. So these are important variables. And especially when you factor in SEO, I can't tell you, the investment in the website performance is huge, because if your website does not perform and Google goes to it, that will affect your SEO. So having something that you can rely on is very, very valuable.
Nice. Cool. So where can people go online to learn more about you personally? Where can people go to find Gamactica? Tell us a little bit about how they can find you on socials and connect with you.
Perfect. I'm easy to find, Anthony DeMauro on Twitter. You can go on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with people there. I am on the other socials, but Twitter is probably the best bet. So I spend the majority of my time.
That's where the blue tick lives.
That's where the blue tick. I gotta follow the blue tick, right? Gamactica is the same too. Follow the blue tick, and we're there. For Gamactica, you can go to Gamactica.com. We have an about page that's very robust. If you feel like it doesn't, there's different sections. So just if you're there and you're like, I'm a sports content creator, know that we have different sections. Take the time to explore. We have a lot of information. We have a news section to help explore the industry, some of our reports and our research modules. And then we have a marketing side that is in the content creator space, but also you can find us at EliteRankSEO.com and find, SEO broadly across all the industries. If you don't really fit in the content creator, gaming, influencer marketing space, we serve that as well. So that's where you can find us.
Cool. Nice. Awesome. Anthony, that was great. Really great to have you on and connect with you again. Good to always
happy to be here.
Always learn a lot when I chat to you. Like yourself, I like to surround myself with people who know a hell of a lot more about something that I only kind of dip my toes in. So it's always good to chat to you, and I'm sure we'll have many more chats and many more SEO related discussions, I've no doubt, on and off offline for sure.
I appreciate it so much. I look forward to that as well, and it was a great time coming on here and talking. As you can tell, I can talk a mile a minute, so it's served me well.
Yeah, me too. Our video editor is going to have to turn down both of our speed afterwards and slow down what we're saying. And it's great to speak to you, mate. Thanks a lot, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much.
That was Anthony DeMauro sharing with us how Gamactica is setting itself apart as a content creators network and growth platform. If you run an online course, community, or membership site powered by BuddyBoss, and you'd like to be featured in an upcoming podcast episode, head over to buddyboss.com/podcast and fill out the form to get in touch. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to let us know, then make sure to hit that like button below and then leave us a quick comment and tell us what was the one most valuable thing that you learned from this episode. That's it for me. Until next time.